No, but on a serious note, we actually wanted to get your thoughts on this because, as we said, you've played for the Reds, for the Tars, for the Force, for the Worcester Warriors. Now you're over in Japan. You've played here and around the world. In particular, we wanted to discuss the fact that people always talk about, like, we wax lyrical about the women getting paid. We wax lyrical about expanding the game in Australia. We wax lyrical about James Slipper running out to Suncorp Stadium for his 150th in front of about 18 people and 12 of them are his family. We wanted to get your thoughts on, because you've played in Japan currently, where they've now expanded to a 2-tier competition and their teams are all privately owned. And then you've got teams over in the UK in a competition where it is absolutely heaving, and you've got privatisation is obviously there as well. You've got owners, you've got stakeholders, but you've also got a very strong sense of tribalism with the teams over in the UK. What can we do to be financially viable for the game here in Australia? Because at the moment, our broadcast money is only about 30 or 40 million a year compared to 500 million for the AFL, 400 million for the NRL, and a 10 billion for the NFL. We won't even touch that. But what can we do? What can we do? What have you seen from these other competitions that are kicking ass that we could potentially implement here in Australia to help grow the game?
Crypto.
There we go. Thanks, Jono. Thanks for joining us, brother. Appreciate it. No. What can we do outside of crypto?
It's a huge question. I'm assuming if it was an easy answer, they would have solved it a little bit. I think, as you said, I've been lucky enough to play around the world, but I've also been lucky enough to play in a time where at the Reds we were getting 35,000 to every game, go to the Waratahs getting 25,000 to each game. Obviously winning helps, but one thing I've sort of always thought about, and I love American sport, if you go watch American sport, you can go and watch the game and your entertainment's not just what's happening on the field. It's everything that's happening around that. And I know that Australian rugby and Australian sport in general, with the crazy laws that are at stadiums, it makes it really hard to do anything outside of what's happening on the field for that 80 minutes. And I know that the Force and Andrew Forrest are trying to change that with a whole bunch of different types of entertainment going on either side of the game. But at the moment, as it stands, rugby in Australia is played and there's not much doing outside of when the ball's in play. So a person's enjoyment purely is relative to win-loss. And I think you need to sort of flick that switch to change it from that, so that a dad can go to the game with his kids. And I mean, dad will probably come home pissed off that the team lost if they did, but at least the kids are having a great time because there's other stuff going on. And then probably another thing is just stadium sizes. I know that obviously Suncorp, when I was playing there at the Reds, we were getting 30,000, so that's awesome. But I played in England where Worcester could seat 11,000 and we'd get 9,500 to it, and it was awesome.
Yes,
the atmosphere,
yes.
Atmosphere was amazing, but I think on top of that, they let people bring in instruments. So, we had these five guys in the
Freeney. Sorry, I'm just jazzed.
We had guys in the crowd that had drums and trumpets, and it's all happening, and the game's happening, but there's music happening, and then they got their chants and all that. So I think Australia's very hogtied by the rules of stadiums. I went to go to the cricket in 2006 and they wouldn't let me in with the watermelon helmet because it was a weapon. Now,
I reckon you bang on there, because you know how they're sort of saying people are getting over the whole set piece, the especially scrums, the resets and all that sort of stuff. You could definitely throw something in there. I'm not sure what, but you'd be more interactive with the crowd or whatever, and that could sort of nullify that boring little set piece if that people don't enjoy it. Who aren't props? I'm sure they're not all props that go and watch. So, but you know what I mean? I don't know. That's not a bad point.
I remember I took a drum to a game 2 years ago, and I was just bashing it the entire game in that Mango Valley, and it was awesome. And as I was standing there, a lady walked past me and said, "Oh, I'm going to stick that drumstick up your ass." It's so loud. I'm like,
"That's my kink."
I'm like, where do you think the other one is? No, but I was like, what are you talking about? We're here having fun, and that's the sort of supporter. So it's this whole thing. It's where's the vibe, man? Where's the spice? That would be so sick. And there's so many supporters that are crying out for that. You go to like a couple of years ago when the Sydney Sevens was on and everybody's dressed up having fun.
Oh, yeah.
And there's 60,000 people there losing their shit. It's like, it's there. You go to a Wallabies game and we get 60,000 people. Like, people want to go to these things, but what can we do to spice it up? Like, so you're saying other entertainment, like what? Like a donkey show or something?
Yeah.
No? No?
No, well, if it works.
No, I'm kidding.
Get the dumps down there.
The Europeans get it though, like like Jono was saying, hey, like they've got their chance, they can take their instruments and all that, and even like a smaller crowd, like a 9,000.
A 9,000?
Yeah, they're just making a lot of racket and.
I'd rather 10,000 at a 15,000 seat stadium than 20,000 at a 50,000. Like it's common sense. You see it, and it just sucks the life out of it when there's not a full stadium.
Well, even the women's league final, that was just at Redcliffe, and that looked pretty packed, and that looked awesome. The atmosphere was pretty good there.
Yeah, and it goes to show you've got the Q Cup. The Q Cup have smaller stadiums, and they sell them out, and they pay their players, and it's a hell of a vibe. Zach was saying that Winner Manly, they have what's called the Chook Pen down the far end. It's a bar at the top of a hill, and if the other team loses the toss, the Seagulls are always running towards the Chook Pen in the second half.
That's so good.
And they just give it to them. Like, it's the thing. Like, why can't we... But, like, why can't we, like, replicate the glue factory or the butchery at the Reds?
Yeah.
Why can't we?
Yeah.
Like, what is hamstringing us from that?
I think as well, like, club rugby in Australia is, like, they rely on it so much, but they don't respect it. Like, fees in Australia are so expensive now to play for a club. Surely a part of your fees, like, the timing's perfect. Put 4 buses from every club game to Suncorp, and if you're registered to a club team, you're getting half price tickets. Like,
Jono with the wisdom. Mate, I remember when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, and every club, junior club, would get tickets for the kids to go to the games. Does that still happen?
I don't know.
Not that
Not
I
sure.
know. Oh, you get a certain amount.
I remember we could go to every single Ballymore game, and all we would do is go there and get beat up by nudgy boys. But there was always a shitload of people at those games. It was always an atmos, and there was before all those Ballymore matches, all the parents and stuff would have a barbie out the front, get on the piss, walk in, leave the car there overnight. Like, I don't know. It's so hard to put your finger on it, but it feels like all the oxygen has just been sucked out of it. Like, all the flavour has just been sucked out of the game, and you try to throw something in there and it just gets shut down. Like, I don't know. Do you reckon there's space for privatisation, Jono? Seeing as you've played in the UK and in Japan, where you've got guys working in sweatshops or whatever you were saying. Like, do you think...
Just pumping out Hondas.
But do you think there's space for privatisation of the game here in Australia, be it like privatise the franchises, the Reds, the Tars, the Rebels?
Yeah, obviously there's risks with it. I think there's definitely space for it. They need to look at all avenues at the moment. It is like a tough one because you hear the bad stories of, what happened at the Force with, I can't remember that sponsor back in the day.
Firepower, where they could turn green waste into fuel or something, and it was all bullshit. Drew Mitchell's still waiting for a bit of cash from that, actually.
Yeah. But they definitely need to look at it. But I think the answer's there. It's just we sort of just keep doing the same stuff. Like I've had this conversation with a fair few of my mates. But even the advertising for Super Rugby, you sort of don't even know it's on at the moment. And round 1 happens. Do you remember 2010, that sort of Game of Thrones intro where the stadiums popped out and the ships were all coming to Australia? Each ship had the logo. That would play for months before round 1.
Yeah, that was unreal, actually.
I remember that,
yeah.
That was so sick.
I chatted to my dad this year, mum and dad, and I was like, Super Rugby's on this weekend. Are you going to watch it? And Dad had no idea that this comp was starting. There's no ads for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Yeah. And get this group on the board and we'll have it.
Yeah, man.